Okay, it is recording. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we are welcoming people I know. There's Hawaii on the call. There is England on the call. There's Canada on the call. There's Netherlands on the call. Have I missed anybody? No, I haven't missed anybody. Okay, well, I think we have everyone. So welcome. And Natalie, you, I think, win the prize for being the most dedicated and getting up first thing in the morning. And the rest of us are having a pretty easy time with it. So what I'm going to do before we go is I'm going to show you. So here is my dough in the bowl. Okay. So that's my dough. And you can see it's quite airy and lovely. And here I have put the filling. Okay, so I've just mixed the butter, the sugar, the pumpkin. This is what I'm going to spread on the dough. And then here I have, this is going to be easier if I just hold this over. Ooh. Let me, there. Okay, so that's the tin that I'm going to use. And what's in that is the butter and the cream or milk and pecans and sugar. So that's where I'm going to nestle the buns. So what I'm going to do is move this away. And this is a category of bun, as I think I told you, I call it like a swirly whirly bun, which is not a very technical term. And I need to get a new tripod because this one is a little bit knackered now. So swirly whirly bun, it's an important technique simply because you can make so many lovely, lovely things with it. So you can, I'll talk to you actually rather than do that. Admit, Harriet Plyler, okay, the United States has joined us. That could be mainland, not ignoring Hawaii, of course. So we've got Hawaii, which I hope is COVID-free. And we've got Tampa, Florida, not COVID-free, nor politician-free. So yeah. Not yet. So swirly whirly bun, just before we go on to making swirly whirly bun, hold on. There's swirly whirly bun is really great because it's pretty. Okay, it's pretty. It always looks kind of high impact, and it's always well received. People think that you're a genius, always good. And you can make a savory dough. So you could make a dough, you can make the exact same dough, for example, but without the sugar. Okay, whoever's chatting, I think I might just put some people on mute. Meeting settings on my phone. You can unmute yourselves. Not sure how to do that. So I'm just going to have to not do that. Okay. So you can make the exact same dough, right? Even with the pumpkin or whatever, leave out the sugar, and you can make a filling that is savory. So you could use, for example, pesto, right? Or you could make a dough that didn't have pumpkin. It just was like a totally regular dough with a bit of butter to make it a little bit enriched. And you could use pesto, you could use tomato sauce, you could use tomato sauce and pesto, you could sprinkle some chili flakes, you could put some fresh herbs, and then you roll it up and you treat it the way we're going to treat it. The filling options are, of course, totally up to your imagination. You can make a sweet dough. And again, you don't have to use pumpkin. You can just use water or milk or a combination of the two. Always throw in an egg. It gives it that sort of more gelatinous texture. If you have an egg, if you don't have an egg, don't worry about it. Chuck in some butter or some oil. And for the savory dough, you could just pop in olive oil. But you could do a sweet dough with a very, nothing fancy, bit of sugar, bit of butter, bit of milk if you have some. And you can do something as simple as spreading jam and rolling it up and treating it the way we're treating it. Okay. Or you could do butter with cinnamon and sugar, or butter with cardamom and sugar, or sugar and butter if you don't have anything else. So you can really do anything you want. And that's the great thing about learning this technique. So it's really just a technique issue. And how you prepare the dough and what you pop in the dough is entirely up to your imagination. Nutella, yum. Butter and grated dark chocolate with some cinnamon, yum. You know, so anything that you can bring to mind, you can do. So what I'm going to do,
pesto, maybe smoked salmon. Would that sort of?
I've never tried it. Sounds amazing to me.
Okay.
Yep, sounds great. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple of these books away. As I say, I sort of need a new tripod. This one is not behaving. There we go. So now you can see. So I am going to put a bit of flour down on the table because you really don't want your dough to stick. Okay, you don't have to use a ton. You just need a little. And then I'm going to take my dough and I'm just going to pull it out of the bowl. Okay, nice clean bowl. And there's my dough. Keep your scraper handy. Your scraper is your best friend when you're making bread. And all I am gonna turn it over because I have to roll it out. And again, I don't want it to stick. I don't want it to stick. So using a rolling pin, what you're gonna do is you're going to, this is a lot of dough. And you want it to be in a bit of a rectangle. And at some point you can just start to stretch it by hand, but it's helpful to roll it out first. Okay, so now I'm just going to gently tug on it because as I say, you want to get it in and just be patient. Sometimes depending on this is why using an all-purpose flour for this kind of bread is a lot easier to handle because the gluten doesn't fight you. If you have a high gluten flour, it will really fight you when you're trying to roll it out. And you want this to be pretty big and pretty flat. And as I say, plain flour makes this particular job a lot easier than if you're using bread flour. And this is about still a little bit thick for my taste. Okay. I don't want the dough to be too thick because I want there to be quite a bit of yummy filling. Okay.
Did you do that with yours?
Great. Happy with that. And if you are finding that the dough is fighting you because you've used, quite a high gluten dough, you can actually pick it up. Okay. Like I can even pick up mine and it's a plain flour. So just let gravity help you. You don't want mine just tore, okay, which is because I'm using a very low gluten flour, but that's okay. Yours, if you're using a high gluten flour, it will not tear. So I'm just going to sort of close that up and I'll make sure that that gets rolled in.
What happens if it sticks?
Well, that's so you want to pick it up, Sabine, watch.
Yeah.
With your scraper and throw some flour underneath.
Okay.
So just make sure it's just floating on the flour.
Yeah.
Okay, so there I've got my kind of lovely orangey dough. And now I'm going to pick up my goo. Now this goo, again, depending on how liquidy your pumpkin is, the goo can be quite thick or it be nice and spreadable. Just be patient when you're spreading it. It really will go to every single corner of this dough. And I find that a scraper is a really, hold on one second, I think there might be somebody who wants in. There we go. Okay. So I find that a scraper is a really great tool for this. So here's my scraper and I'm just going to take this right out to the edges. Okay, and you're gonna have to get it off the scraper every once in a while. And by all means, look, here's a spatula, okay? So you can also do it with a spatula. But if you have quite a thick filling, in some of the recipes for, cinnamon buns or cardamom buns, it's really quite a thick filling because it's just butter and sugar and spice. It doesn't have the pumpkin, in this case, the pumpkin or the apple or the quince or whatever you're using slackens this off a lot. But it will spread. You just have to be patient. But this one spreads really easily. So it's a pleasure. Take it right to the ends, almost right off, because you don't want to have those boring, dull end bits with nothing fun at all. So I'm taking it right to the edges. There we go. Okay. Now, how's everybody doing? Is everybody with me?
Yeah.
Now, if you have got, I'm just going to get another scraper. Don't go away. I'll be right back.
I can pick up.
So because my dough is quite firm, right? Because I had that canned pumpkin that I was using, and some of you have quite a wet dough because you were, using a homemade pumpkin or your homemade quince or whatever. Just be patient when you roll it up. Okay, you might need to take the scraper and just start one little fold. Okay, mine is easy, trust me, because mine is quite a dry dough. And stretch your edge so that you've got a nice square. Okay, and if you've got a really soft dough, just use a scraper and be patient. Don't worry, everything will be just fine. Okay, and then you've got your first, this is a messy job. Okay, you've got your first little roll. If you need to continue using your scraper, continue to use it, right? So here, if you want to watch for a second, I do not have to do this because honestly, my dough is quite firm. But if you need to, just use the scraper and make sure you're rolling pretty tightly. So give your dough a little tuck every time you roll it over, and make sure that your edges stay nice and square. Okay, so I am handling this as if it was really difficult to handle. And in my case, it isn't, but I totally appreciate that some of you might have quite a soft dough. Okay, and so just keep working right along your dough like this, and you will probably get quite sticky fingers, which is fine. And you can give it a little tug back so it stays into a nice tight roll. Okay, and at some point, you can probably dispense with the scraper, okay, like I've done. And I'm gonna give it a little tug back towards me and roll it over. And I'm gonna keep straightening out those edges as well. Okay, so here's the edge here, because I want it to be nice and square. So a little tug towards me, straightening out the edges, right? A little tug, straightening out the edges, and just be patient with yourself. And you want it to be a nice kind of tight roll. Okay, so there I've got mine. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wash my hands. Okay, I'll be right back. I'm obviously not in the kitchen, so I'm just going to wash my hands. So how are we doing in terms of the rolling? How's everybody?
A lot of scraper.
Everybody's
Scrape.
at? How's everybody doing? I'm gonna be down here like this. Everybody's fine?
Yep, working.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, Natalie has 2 thumbs up. Natalie's clearly doing online Zoom classes with children who have to do that all the time. How you doing, kids?
It's a bit uneven sausage, I'm afraid.
That's all right. Just it's pretty manipulatable. So you can just, just sort of use both hands and see if you can get it into a nice even roll. But that's fine. They'll just be different sizes. That's all that means.
Yeah.
So now what I'm gonna do is I've got my sausage here. Push that back. Okay. And I've got my tin here. And I always look, it's just me. You might be better at eyeballing. And I'm going to use my scraper. It's a great tool for the job. I'm going to cut this in half. Okay. And now I'm literally going, I want them to be about an inch. And you may find that your dough, right, blurches out. That's fine. Just reshape it so that so if I do one, I'll do another one. Okay, so here's my sausage. So I'm going to take my scraper. I'm not going to use a knife. Cut down fast. The dough kind of squishes out the end, but that's fine, right? Just lay it flat and make it nice again. Pick it up with the scraper and snuggle it into the tin. Now, if you have a huge tin, they may not touch, which is fine. So if you want your buns to rise up rather than out, what you do is you make sure that they touch in the tin. But if you want your buns to spread out and be flatter and bigger, then what you do is you just make sure they don't touch, because then they'll have room in the tin to spread out. Okay, so far mine look like this. See? There they are.
Jane,
So
what is
every
all
time
that
you
you have in the
cut
bottom of, what do you have in the bottom of that pan? It looks like a bunch of nuts, is it?
It's the goo. So the recipe for the goo is butter, sugar, cream, or milk.
Okay,
And you melt all of that together and you pour it in the pan, and optional pecans.
okay. So do you have pecans in it? Is that why
I'm
it
so
looks,
sorry, Harry.
do you have pecans in it? Is that why it looks like lumpy?
Yes, because those are
Okay,
pecans.
okay,
So
okay,
these are pecans. Here, these are pecans.
Got it, okay.
So we're just going to carry on. And remember, you can just adjust the buns as you cut them. So don't worry. So I'm going to show you again, like I'm going to cut one here. And it kind of goes a bit squashy. Flip it on its side and adjust it. No problemo. And pop it in the tin. Okay, there we go. And here's the little endy runty bit. So I'll put that one cut side up like that. Okay, so now I'm gonna work with the others on my other side.
So Jane, may I ask you a question while you're working on that other one? If
Yes.
I wanted to say, give these as Christmas presents and say I wanted to fill it with guava instead of pumpkin, once you get these into the pan, would that be the time to maybe freeze those and then give them frozen and then let people defrost them and let them rise?
Probably, yeah, Harriet, that's a great question. The amazing thing about dough is it just recovers all the time.
Yeah.
So you could definitely shape them like this and immediately freeze them. And you could give them, yeah, absolutely. You can give them to people frozen, and they can, they can, with instructions, take them out, let them rise, or take them out the night before you want them, stuff them in the fridge where they'll defrost.
Yeah.
For sure. Dough is so forgiving. And it's a great idea with guava. So I know that Clint and Jude from England are on the call, and they had a glut of quince. So they're using quince paste.
Yeah, I just, we should, I think guava paste or quince paste would be fabulous for this.
Yeah, as quince would be, there's one, it's a Mexican bun called a Niño Envuelto, which means a wrapped up baby. And it just has jam.
Yeah.
So, in extremis, jam.
Extremis.
Right, so here are my buns. They're all tucked into the pan. So the littler ones, which were, the ends, no matter what, they're all here. I just moved them over. And now if here I can kind of spread them out a bit. If you wanted to, and I never do, but if you wanted to, you could brush the tops with some more melted butter, like a little more melted butter never hurt anybody. You could even probably try and get in there with a pastry brush and pick up some of the goo and spread that over. So let me go get a pastry brush and I'll show you what I mean.
Spread it around the tops of buns.
So here's my pastry brush. And hang on, there's somebody who wants to come in. So here's my pastry brush here. And if you wanted to, you could kind of get in between the buns a little bit, right? There's a little bit of space, and you can do some brushing of the tops. You don't need to, because the most beautiful thing about these will be the bottoms, right? So the whole point of these is that you turn them out when you pull them out of the oven. So it's the other side that is, super incredibly glistening and amazing. But if you want to, as I say, you can get in there with a bit of a pastry brush and do some brushing on the tops. There we go. So I've done some squashing down there and some brushing. And now you have learned how to do the technical bake. Is that what it's called on the Great British Bake Off? The technical bake? The technical bake of the swirly whirly bun. I'm sure they would never call it something that silly, but that is what it looks like. So let's have a little view. And all I'm going to do, by the way, is cover these up with a tea towel and let them rise for 45 minutes. Oh, Harriet's gone to church. Goodbye, Harriet. Okay, turn this around. Oop. There we go. No, other way. Oop. There we go. So that is the swirly whirly bun technique. So let's see how you guys are doing. Caroline, let's see yours. I bet they're beautiful.
Hi, yeah, let me grab them.
Natalie's look lovely.
Do you see
Oh,
mine?
those look wonderful. Okay,
Oh,
I've got to
they look
scroll over. How's everybody else doing?
Mine's a bit of a mess, but it'll be fine.
Yeah, because they're always fine. They're always fine. Let's see, Bean. Let's see your mess. Let's see your.
Sorry, I'm just trying to, I don't know how. Need to turn around the video. Oh, sorry. There you go.
That's okay. It's. Oh, those look great.
What was you? If you use a different flavor than pumpkin, because obviously the pumpkin's gone into the dough. What would you replace the pumpkin in the dough with?
Okay, so the pumpkin is simply actually. Hang on, Sabine. The pumpkin is effectively the liquid. So this is where you could use something as basic as water or milk or a mixture of water and milk. With water, the dough will rise more, but given that you're squashing it, it doesn't really matter. You could use, look, you can use anything. You could use, I have made, actually, do you know what's really good? I have used cold coffee and then put a chocolate filling in.
Okay. So you basically just the equivalent of 350 gram liquid, whatever liquid that's going to be.
Correct.
Okay.
And if you're finding that it's too wet, like you found that your pumpkin was, was very, because you cooked it yourself, it was very liquidy, then you might want to adjust, like add the liquid, just, add 300, for example, keep 50 back. Right. So you might want to just add the liquid gradually until you get to a dough, the texture that you want it to be. So yeah, Nutella with coffee. Yeah, I mean, honestly, coffee in the dough was a whole total revelation for me. Obviously, it has to be cold because you don't want to kill the yeast. But I've used coffee, I've used tea, I've used, I mean, there are French, you could do a savory one with red wine and you could fill it with cheese and nuts. That would be delicious. I have used all sorts of juice, all sorts of different kinds of tea. So you can use anything. Like the liquid is just the liquid and nothing, as long as it's room temperature, no liquid is going to kill the yeast. So any combination. Right. I often thought of, making some, I thought it would be really hilarious to make them like for appetizers and like make Bloody Mary or martini bread rolls, like olives and I don't know, vodka or something with a tomato filling. Yeah, sweet chestnut sounds amazing. So honestly, you can use anything, and that just goes for bread in general. So how is everybody doing? Because we're done for today. If everybody's all rolled up and ready to go, what I would love to do is two things. I'd love to see your buns all rolled up and snuggled in their tins. I've seen some. And Natalie is saying, not sure how far I'd get. Yeah, exactly. It would take a lot of vodka. Sweet chestnut puree, I love more than life itself. So I totally think that's a great idea. And what does anybody, I mean, if anybody has any, I clearly have a million ideas for next week, but I also realized that I've been calling the shots the past couple of weeks. So if there's anything that anybody particularly would like to try next week, pop it in the chat or send me an email, and we can certainly, you know, do something at your request rather than at mine.
Can I ask a question about last week's Stollen?
Yes.
I've basically made another batch, given that my first batch wasn't really, you know, perfect. And I put it in the fridge overnight because I made it last night. It's still quite hard. Do I need to do anything to it?
It will just take a while to warm up, because remember, it's basically fat.
It's been out for about 4 hours, so.
Yeah, but Sabine, think about how long it takes butter to warm up from being a freezing cold block. Yeah. So just, it's fine. You know, as soon as you can handle it, start handling it. It's completely fine. But you know, leave it out for another few hours, as long as you don't have to like whack it with a rolling pin to try to shape it. And as soon as you start working with it, the heat of your hands will start melting the fat, and it will become more malleable.
Okay, good. Great, thank you.
Clint and Jude, how are you doing there with your quints? Oh. How are you doing, Clint and Jude, with your quints? How's it working out?
Oh, it's looking good. Oh, we just, hang on.
They're not looking good.
They're not looking good.
Oh no.
They've sort of, when we cut them, the dough closed up over the filling.
Right. So all you do is, as I showed you, you cut one and then you lay it flat. And then if you have to, just kind of adjust it a bit manually, you know, maybe rewind it a bit or restick it a bit, or just, you know, squash it a little bit more flat. So that's one of the reasons why, exactly. And they'll be beautiful when they're baked, and they'll be delicious, even if they're not beautiful, but I bet they will be beautiful. But it is one of the reasons this dough can be easier to work with when it's cold. So if your dough is cold, if you've pulled it out of the fridge, remember to take a bit more time letting it warm up before you bake it. So mine is room temperature. I'll give it 45 minutes and I'll pop it in the oven. But if my dough was freezing cold, I'd probably give it a good couple of hours before popping it in the oven. Okay. So I think that they're looking rather splendid. So does anybody have any initial thoughts about next week?
Chinese sticky buns.
Crumpets.
Chinese sticky buns or Chinese steamed buns?
Steamed buns.
Chinese steamed buns, okay. Well, I've never heard of a Chinese sticky bun, so.
No, I meant the steam bun.
Steam bun. Okay, so steam buns, very interesting idea, requires a steamer, or requires people to have a steamer on, you know, like a bain-marie steamer, or a steamer function in a rice cooker. So that is an interesting thought. And Natalie has said, kind of liking the holiday theme, which is nice, because I guess we could do Chinese buns for Chinese New Year. So why don't we do that? Why don't we do Chinese buns for Chinese New Year, whenever that's going to be, and we'll carry on with the holiday theme. I do have this amazing crumpets. Clint and Jude are saying crumpets. Need a crumpet ring, yes, or you could make it kind of oddly shaped ones. So yes, crumpets are a nice idea as well. And the other, sorry, Sabine?
We could make vanilla kipfel.
We're doing yeast. Sorry, love. This is not a biscuit class.
No, doesn't.
But you and I can have a Zoom and make our kipfel, because we did a good job last year. So I do have this great like Christmas focaccia thing that's really, really easy.
Ooh. Yay.
So that's fun. And it's kind of a no need that you could do. Literally, you could like do it Christmas Day if you celebrate Christmas. Or, you know, it's one of those things that you can do the night before and bake it on the day. So that's quite fun. And it has a lot of dried fruit and nuts and cinnamon. It's okay. We could do, we can kind of go with the holiday theme. Yes.
Jane?
Somebody say something? Yes.
It's Jane, it's Clint. Can we just tell you a quick story? We bought your book, Baking Bread at Home, and we bought it as a present for a friend. And yesterday brought us the most delicious, beautiful sourdough. And he said he'd used your recipe out of the book, and it had made the best sourdough he'd ever made.
Oh,
So,
Clint, thank you for telling me that. That is so, I can't tell you how nice that is to hear. Did he make the rye one or the wheat one?
wheat
Or you
one.
don't know? That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Very, yeah,
And he
nice
said-
friends.
And he said, what it was what you said about how to take the sourdough out and develop it and grow it just before you bake with it was what made the real difference. So he was delighted.
Oh, I'm so thrilled. Thank you so much for telling me that. It's really nice to get positive feedback. So thank you. And I'm glad that it worked for him.
Jane,
so thanks. Yes.
Jane, it's Janet. I've managed to get your bun book, and your perfecting sourdough book is on its way.
Oh, brilliant.
So, and
That's
I've got my
fantastic.
sister making sourdough, which is fab.
Oh, good. Oh, that's great. Oh, Natalie, thank you. Oh, I'm glad that you guys are getting into this. That's so terrific. And thank you for, for helping to support my books, which is always also really rather nice. It's always, the publisher, I'm more popular with the publisher if, books sell, which, so that's always a good thing. Let me just check the messages here. I think we're fine. The bun book in the UK, that's a great question. Amazon usually has it. At the moment, I think it's out of print, which I'm discussing with the publisher, but usually you can get it secondhand on Amazon, just so that people know. Okay, well, everybody, are you all rolled up and ready to go? Because if you are, why don't I just have a deep think about what we're going to do next week and carrying on with our holiday theme. And definitely before American Thanksgiving, I think we should make brioche, because Americans have this thing called dinner rolls, which apparently is on every single Thanksgiving table, so I'm told. So we will make dinner rolls, but we'll do them out of a brioche dough. So we'll do that closer to American Thanksgiving. If the Americans can tell me when it is. It's the third Thursday in November, is that right? Well, we'll figure it out. And the Sunday before, we will do some brioche. Okay, 26th. Oh, it's late this year. Wow. Okay, fantastic. Well, everybody listen, have a wonderful day. Enjoy your buns. Please send me photos when they come out of the oven and let me know what you liked about them, what you would do differently next time. And I will see you next Sunday, and I'll send out a newsletter with the recipe in advance.
Thanks, Jane.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye, sis.
There we go. Bye, everyone.